Hi guys, Darth here, back with another video, continuing on with my top 10 lists for 2022. We'll be taking a look at my top 10 Star Wars The Black Series figures of 2022. And honestly, when all things said and done, it was a really solid year for Black Series yet again. It felt maybe a little underwhelming compared to maybe other years. Maybe it's just because it felt like it was kind of a slow start, man. I mean, like the first wave of the year, it felt like it took almost half the year for me to find half the figures, which is kind of crazy. But eventually everything did come out and a lot of great stuff did get released. So in front of here is just a bunch of honorable mentions. There's a bunch of figures here because there was honestly a bunch of figures I really liked this year. It was a pretty difficult list to make. So many figures could have made it. And this is just a bunch. There's even more that I don't not have shown here that could have been on the list. But figures like Tython Mando Tython Boba Fett from Mando is quite good. Fennec Shand was great. I just wish he came with more accessories. The Mandalorian Ahsoka Tano, really great figure. I would say objectively probably one of the best releases of the year. There's other characters. When it comes to Black Series and just for the most part figures in general, characters do play a role, and there's just more characters that I just preferred. That I got figures this year. The new Miggs Mayfeld was really good. I think this is honestly kind of a sleeper figure of the year, although he did come out pretty recently, but he's pretty cool. Some Obi-Wan Kenobi stuff. Ned B came out on the tail end of the year. I was able to get him. He's great. Really like that Phase 2 Purge Trooper from the Walmart exclusive one. We don't get really good looks of them in the show because it's quite dark, but there's actually a decent amount of new molding to that figure, and it's just a really great trooper figure. I really love the design. That was really well done. Almost made my list. We are getting all of the Inquisitors from the show. And while I'm not a fan of all the design choices, I'm always happy to get more Darksiders, more Inquisitors in the collection. And I think the Fifth Brother and the Reva are both really well done figures. And then we got some clones and trooper stuff. Sergeant Creel back there is the only of the comic book figures that I picked up this year, but he's really great. Being on the new Stormtrooper body mold, he was going to be really good anyways, but they did just enough new tooling to make that feel like a new, different figure, and he's a Stormtrooper with a lightsaber. He's pretty cool. And then even some repaints of the ARC Trooper mold, which I really love. The Umbra Operative Gaming Grates, really cool. I love that look for the ARC Trooper. And then we did actually get a Fordo in the Black Series line, which on the one hand, I'm really happy we got Fordo. He's my favorite clone trooper character, and I think it's just super cool we got him in the Black Series at all. But on the flip side, he is pretty lazy. All they did was just repaint the 3D Clone Wars ARC Trooper mold and give him a new helmet sculpt, so he's not very accurate. It doesn't bother me a ton because I just really love this body mold. It's really great. And my headcanon for this figure, this is what Fordo would have looked like if he ended up appearing in the 3D series, but I don't think making an accurate Fordo would have been that hard or that expensive for Hasbro to make, so I think it is kind of sucky that they didn't do that, and that's what kept him off the list. But yeah, that's pretty much all like honorable mentions and just kind of like overview of some cool stuff that came out this year. So now let's get on to the actual top 10. And at number 10, it might be a controversial pick, but I am putting the Delta Squad members that we've gotten so far from the Gaming Greats at number 10. And I know a lot of people aren't super happy with these figures. They're not pleased that they reused the Hunter body mold, and there's a number of inaccuracies with them. But even despite all the issues that I do agree with to a certain extent, I just can't help but still really like these figures a lot. The Hunter mold, I think still, even though it's a bit maybe thin, I think it still works pretty well for the Commandos. Hunter's armor is pretty similar to the standard Commando armor. I think the paint apps are pretty great, especially on Boss and Fixer. The new skull for the helmet I think looks really good. The articulation is super well done and fun. The Hunter mold was just like that. It was great. Accessories, decent, even though, yeah, the standard rifles are too small. But yeah, I'm just super happy they just made the Delta Squad in Black Series 6 inch. It's like a wish list. Like, never thought they'd actually make these guys in Black Series 6 inch, and now that they are, I'm very happy to just have them at all. So, and they're just super fun. They pose really nicely and just super fun. I'm really looking forward to Scorch coming out at some point this year to finish off the squad. So yeah, I just really like these guys a lot. Next up at number 9, we have Cobb Vanth, and he probably would have been higher on the list, but I think it's just the price point that keeps him so low. He is a deluxe figure, even though in my opinion there is nothing deluxe about this figure. He is not larger. He has no crazy different engineering or parts count really. He actually has reuse. He reuses parts of the Return of the Jedi Boba Fett. I don't think the paint apps warrant the price point. Yeah, he does have the extra battle damage on the armor, but there are spots on the armor that don't have any battle damage, and there's details on the pants, on the belt, and whatnot that should have been painted that just aren't. It doesn't come with any extra accessories. A lot of issues for deluxe release. It just wasn't a deluxe release at all. But if you ignore the price point, it's still a pretty great figure. I'm a really big fan of the character, which is a really big reason why this is on the list. I really like the character a lot. I'm a sucker for gunslinger style characters in Star Wars. Accessories, he does come with a good amount. The accessories should have came with the pistol, rifle, helmet, jetpack, and you can remove the missile from the jetpack. He just should have came with some extra accessories and had the right amount of paint apps, honestly. But still a cool figure, and I'm glad to have this character in figure form. I think right now it's the only action figure you can get of Cobb Vanth. At number 8, this is a really recent release, but it is the Amazon exclusive Cad Bane from Baraka from the Bad Batch. Really cool they made this look for Cad Bane. We got the Clone Wars Cad Bane 2020, 2021, something like that. I can't remember. And probably one of my favorite Black Series figures. I really like that one. I still prefer that one. I prefer that look, but this is still really great that we got this look from Bad Batch to recreate those scenes or do whatever you want with it. And a lot of new molding that I wasn't really expecting. This figure I think is like 85% new mold. He's got a lot of new parts. He articulates really well. He looks really great. He's got the hat. You can take the hat off. Great head sculpt underneath there. Got the pistols you can store in his holsters or have him hold. Articulates and poses really nicely. And just really like Cad Bane as a character. So yeah, really great release. Bit unfortunate it was Amazon exclusive because they ended up marking up the price because of that. But again, that's just classic Hasbro at this point. And at number 7, we have the deluxe release Saw Gerrera from Rogue One. And I think this has been a long time coming for this character. We've had all the other characters pretty much for years now. And up until this year, the only figure you could get of Saw was the 5 POA from the Rogue One line, which didn't look bad or anything, but didn't have the posability or anything like that. So really happy they ended up releasing this guy. I actually think this is the best deluxe release of the year in terms of like bang for your buck. It's not my number one favorite, but I think it's the best in my opinion. He's got all new sculpt head to toe. Head sculpt and face print I think is really good. Really good likeness to Forrest Whitaker. Decently sized. He's got some heft to him. He's a bit bigger than other characters, not super larger than them, but he is a bit heftier. Has good articulation, has a pretty good amount of paint apps. There's quite a bit of paint on this figure. And it's also just the parts count. You get your accessories, you get the staff with paint on it, and you get the pistol with paint on it. But the whole torso chest armor is a bunch of different pieces. You got like the chest armor, the cape's a separate piece, the shoulder pad's a separate piece. And you have separate pieces for the breathing mask, the straps on the breathing mask, the hoses, the canisters are all separate sculpted pieces. So that does factor into the money that went into making this guy. So I do think in terms of what actually went into the figure, this one is a lot more closer to being worth the deluxe price point than other figures. And yeah, I'm just a really big fan of the character and happy to have him in the Black Series line with the other Rogue One characters. Next up at number 6, we have the Grand Inquisitor from Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I know a lot of people weren't a fan of how they redesigned the head for this character in the show. Honestly, from the neck down, I think the character design is really good. I think it's pretty close to how he looked in Rebels, and I actually like some of the changes, like giving him the larger shoulder pad and giving him the cape. I think makes him look a little more like grander, like his actual station. But yeah, I have the same complaints with the design of the head. I don't know why they made his head look like that in the show when we've had live action Powins, this species of alien since Revenge of the Sith. I don't know why they went this way with the design. But ignoring the head sculpt, or just objectively the head sculpt, not this the design, I think Hasbro did a good job capturing what they did in the show. I think the figure itself is nicely sculpted and painted. He articulates really well. I like his double blade lightsaber, and I like how you can plug it onto his back. I also really like the soft goods cape. It's a really nice material, and I like how it's got the dark like burgundy red on the inside and the black on the outside, which is super nice. And I'm just a big fan of the character. It doesn't, the design of the head, it sucks. It's not that great. I don't like it that much, but I was a fan of the performance that Rupert Friend gave in the show. And I'm just a big fan of the Grand Inquisitor as a character in general, so I'm just happy to have an articulated figure of the Grand Inquisitor, because again, the only figure we've had of the Grand Inquisitor so far is the old 5POA Rebels figure, which look-wise isn't bad, but the pose, you can't do anything with it. And this one you can. So, yeah, I do really like this one a lot. At number 4, we have the deluxe Book of Boba Fett throne room figure slash. Also, just going to count the Walmart exclusive Tython armored Boba Fett, because they're pretty much the same figure, just different paint and different belt pieces. Again, pretty much the same thing with Cobb Vanth. This is a deluxe release that really shouldn't have been a deluxe release. This one was marketed as Book of Boba Fett on the packaging, but it's actually from The Mandalorian. It never looks like this in the Book of Boba Fett. And maybe it was just at the time, this was like the only figure that came close to how he looked in Book of Boba Fett. I really liked this show a lot. And at the time, I really wanted a figure that looked even close to how he looked in the show. So I was really happy when this finally released and I got a hold of him. And this guy's stand was on my desk for a while. I was posing him and taking photos of him for quite a while before he went on the shelf. So that counts for something, even though he doesn't come with extra accessories. The paint apps on him are decent, but he doesn't have like an absurd amount of paint apps. He doesn't have crazy battle damage. They didn't bother painting the knee guards, dart launchers, and some other random details I think should have been painted. No effect parts or anything like that. When it would have been super easy to do that, because flamethrower effect pieces and thruster pieces for the jetpack already exist from the Return of the Jedi Deluxe Boba Fett. If they included those, I would have at least wouldn't have complained quite so much, but they didn't. So, but still had a lot of fun with these figures, so that's why they're higher on the list. And again, character, really like the character in the show, so yeah. And at number 4, we have my favorite deluxe release of the year. It is the Dark Trooper from The Mandalorian. I really love the design of the Dark Troopers from the show, and they're really cool in the show. And yeah, I think this is a great release. Again, I think pretty much almost if not every deluxe release from Black Series this year has been questionable in terms of their value for the money. I think this one's at least a little closer. I still think it's overpriced, but all new sculpt from head to toe. The paint apps, not a ton of paint, but the paint apps that are there are really nicely done with all those silver detailing. Do look really cool. The articulation is really great. Accessories are decent. You get the rifle, you get the thruster effects for his feet, and you get the interchangeable fisted hands for punching, which is super cool. But he's missing some features that like the Vintage Collection one had. Like the Vintage Collection one came with the entire recharging little docking station, which I kind of understand why the Black one didn't come with. But again, it would have been cool to get something like that. Also, for whatever reason, the Vintage Collection can store his rifle on his hip, but this one can't, which I think is really weird. They didn't engineer that, and it would have been so easy as just putting a tab hole in his thigh so we can tab it in. So I don't know why they didn't do that, but still really like this one. This is the only deluxe figure I got 2 of. I did end up getting 2 of these guys. It was kind of by accident, if I'm being honest, but I don't regret getting 2 of them because it's super cool having 2 of these guys flanking him off Gideon. But another, really solid release from this year. And at number 3, we have Echo from the Bad Batch, which I'm sure is highly anticipated for anyone who's a fan of the show. I really like the Bad Batch show and the characters. I wasn't quite so sold on them when they first kind of made their debut, but they've grown on me an awful lot. And it's Echo. Really like Echo as a character, and I really like his armor design, and the figure is really well done. Mostly new sculpting, some very minor reuse, but for the most part, it's pretty much all new. I really like the colors on him. I really like the design of his armor, especially the helmet. I really love the helmet design for Echo. Decent accessories. You get your backpack. You can remove the helmet, and it's got a pretty good realistic interpretation of how Echo would look. Pistol you can store in the holster, and they even gave him the concept art attachment for his arm, his cyborg arm, which is super cool. And happy to finally finish the full team, which was something I was really happy to finally do this year. And number 2 here could easily be number 1. My thoughts on that change from day to day. But at number 2 for now anyways, it is the Clone Wars Darth Maul, which is pretty recently released. And this is the Maul that collectors have been waiting for in the Black Series for years and years at this point. The Vintage Collection version of this guy came out last year, and that was a really good figure. And this one is really excellent as well. The head sculpt is really nice. It's probably the best Darth Maul head sculpt we've gotten in the line so far. This is definitely the best Darth Maul figure in general we've gotten so far. All new sculpt. Paint is for the most part really good. Articulation really nice and fun to pose. Comes with a double bladed lightsaber. You can split in half if you want, so that's really cool. Do wish he maybe came with a little more. It would have been nice if he came with a dark saber. I think that would have been super cool. Also, interchangeable hands for Force users, I think, just should be something they start doing. But I don't know if that'll ever happen anytime soon. But yeah, super happy to finally have this version of Maul in the collection at the 6-inch scale. And then at number 1, we have the Death Watch Mandalorian from The Mandalorian. And I don't know what it is about this Mando, but I just really like the design. I have the Vintage Collection figure, I have this Black Series figure, and I even have the Hot Toys 6-scale figure of this guy. It's just a great design. Even though it's really simple, it basically just takes parts from Mando's armor and takes parts from Boba Fett's armor, puts them together, colors them blue, and calls it a day. But it just works really well. Just a super clean looking Mando that looks great. And I think this is like as pretty close to perfect as a Black Series figure can be for the most part. The sculpt is really well done. The helmet is, pretty much perfect in terms of shape. It really turned out well. You can move the rangefinder, which is always a fun feature of these guys. Paint's pretty sharp and clean for the most part. He does got a little bit of scuffing here and there, and you could make the argument he should have maybe a little bit more weathering, but for Black Series standards, especially when it's not a deluxe, it's pretty good in my opinion. Articulation is great. You can get pretty much all the poses you'd expect to get. Accessories are good, jetpack, you get pistol you can store on his hip, and you get the rifle, which is nice. Articulation's really good. And even though I've really thought they'd reuse like the Mando body and then just do some new tooling, this guy's actually I think pretty much 100% all new tooling, which I was very surprised to see, but very happy to see. So yeah, absolutely love this figure. At some point I should probably track down another one. I only have one right now. I might get another one at some point, but yeah, I think this is one of the best Black Series figures releases of the year for sure, but I think just in the line in general, it's a highlight. But anyways, that is pretty much it. That is my top 10 Black Series figures of 2022. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. What are some of your guys' favorite Black Series figures of the year? What are you excited for that's coming out next year? Interesting to know that stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So again, thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. May the Force be with you.